if you will, for St. Peter and St. Paul Parish in Esquimalt, British Columbia. And so I look after various things. And part of that is Christian education, that is, things of interest to Christians, and partly a learning situation. What we'd like to do now is to welcome back Christopher Page. He's been the rector of St. Philip Anglican Church in Oak Bay for 21 years. He serves the Diocese of BC as Archdeacon of Tolmie, and he's married to Heather. They have 2 daughters and 3 granddaughters. He's been a regular blogger for the past 6 years at a spacious place, as well as contributing regularly to the Times Colonist blog and spirituality page. He and his wife actually teach centering prayer, a form of meditation in the Christian tradition, and lead contemplative retreats. This is going to be very interesting. I have heard it before, but now you have the opportunity. So welcome, Christopher, and we look forward to hearing what you have to say.
Thanks, Grant. It's good to see you again, and good to be back. So the comments that I'm going to share emerged out of a sermon that I preached a couple of Sundays ago here at St. Philip's, where we had a number of people with us as company, and I was asked if I could try to share some of the things I said in the sermon. And the sermon was based actually on some words in Matthew's Gospel, chapter 18, particularly verses 15 to 19. So I'm going to start just by reading those verses so that you have some awareness of where I'm coming from in these comments. They're words that Jesus spoke when he was speaking to his disciples, and he said to them, "If another member of the church sins against you, go and point out the fault when the 2 of you are alone. If the member listens to you, you have regained that one. But if you are not listened to, take 1 or 2 others along with you, so that every word may be confirmed by the evidence of 2 or 3 witnesses. If the member refuses to listen to them, tell it to the church. And if the offender refuses to listen even to the church, let such a one be to you as a Gentile and a tax collector. Truly I tell you, whatever you bind on earth will be bound in heaven, and whatever you loose on earth will be loosed in heaven." So that was the gospel reading, or part of the gospel reading for the particular Sunday that in which I was speaking at this service. And I began by pointing out something that to some people may be shocking, may seem extraordinarily insightful on the part of Jesus, and maybe a little bit unsettling. But Jesus appears to recognize and to acknowledge at the beginning of this passage the possibility, as shocking as it may seem, that there might come a time in the church that Jesus was going to leave behind after his physical departure from the earth, that there might come a time in the church when, believe it or not, some people might not get along. I know that that seems an unsettling possibility, but the reality is, we all know, if we have relationships with anybody more than just ourselves, and sometimes I can even argue with myself, that there probably are going to be arguments, disagreements, people are going to see things differently in the church. And the question then arises, so what do we do in the face of those disagreements, those divisions, those separate, what is it that Jesus wants? And the interesting thing is, when people confront this question in light of Matthew chapter 18, there's a tendency for them to rush very quickly to verse 17, where Jesus says, if the member refuses to listen to them, to the whole church, even to the church, then let such a one be to you as a Gentile and a tax collector. And that verse has been taken by a number of people in the history of the church to give credence to the idea that the thing we are supposed to do when there's disagreement in the church is to try to convince the person we perceive to have done wrong or to be in error. And if they refuse to cooperate or to listen or to pay attention, then the time comes when we are authorized by Jesus, according to some readings of this text, we are authorized just to walk away, treat them as a Gentile and a tax collector. Now, I don't know where that idea ever came from. I don't know how that idea ever really got started, because if you think about how Jesus treated essentially everyone, certainly how he treated Gentiles, how he treated tax collectors, how he treated all people. He sat down with them at a meal, he welcomed them in, he embraced them, he drew them into fellowship with himself and with those who were his followers. That was always, always Jesus' intention. So I don't know how you get from this verse to, well, I can shun you and walk away from you because we don't agree and you're wrong and I'm right. But that is the place some people take it to. But the whole passage, if you read the whole passage, it's really focused on one thing. Jesus' desire is to restore community. Jesus' desire is to bring people back together in fellowship. Jesus wants, it appears in this passage, to enable us to not lose fellowship, to not break fellowship with those we are in communion with. The passage starts out by suggesting this possibility of turmoil in relationship, of a breakdown of relationship. If another member of the church sins against you, go and point out the fault when the two of you are alone. And then Jesus gives what I think is really the sort of thesis statement for this passage. If the member listens to you, you have regained that one. And then he goes on to spell out a more elaborate process that we might go through in order to regain the member, to restore the member we've become separated from. So restoration, healing, reconciliation, the rebuilding of community is always Jesus' first desire, Jesus' longing, Jesus' goal. It's always intended to be our means of operation as a community to draw back into our fellowship anyone who's strayed, any brokenness that has occurred in community. We endeavor to find a way to healing. So the question then that emerges out of this passage is, how are we going to do that? How are we going to find our way as a community to a healing place? How are we going to become instruments of restoration? How are we going to become people who are able to restore and rebuild relationship? 12 years ago, my wife Heather and I were celebrating our 25th wedding anniversary, and we gave each other rings. I'm wearing mine. I've been wearing mine ever since. They're actually they're First Nations rings. I know you can't see it very well on Skype probably, but they couldn't see it very well from the pulpit either, so you're equal. But these rings were carved for us by Billy Tommy, a Coast Salish carver of the Cowichan band. And they have on them carved both one of the tiniest little beings on Earth, a hummingbird, and one of the greatest and mightiest beings on Earth, the orca, or the killer whale. And those two symbols are there not by accident. The hummingbird, traditionally in First Nations typology, is a symbol of beauty, intelligence, and love. And the orca, apparently, I understand orcas mate for life, and so the orca is a symbol or a sign for faithfulness. So the means of restoring human community, the means of regaining our brother, is by practicing and living in beauty, intelligence, love, and faithfulness. But that kind of begs the question of how exactly we're going to go about that. How exactly, do you take a workshop on finding beauty? Take a workshop on love or on faithfulness? Probably doesn't really work that way. How are we going to find that quality of love and faithfulness, of intelligence and beauty and goodness and steadiness that is the means that enables us to be people who rebuild and restore community? And this is where I think Matthew 18 really gets quite interesting, and in a verse that is seldom focused on, and because it's very odd and a little bit difficult to get a hold of. Jesus says in Matthew chapter 18, verse 18, after saying, if the offender refuses to listen even to the church, let such a one be to you as a Gentile and a tax collector, he goes on and says, truly I tell you, whatever you bind on earth will be bound in heaven, and whatever you loose on earth will be loosed in heaven. Now, it's important in hearing that verse not to get too tangled up in the language, particularly in the use of the word heaven. The Greek word for heaven is uranos, and it can mean a state beyond this physical realm, but it can also mean the whole universe, all of creation, all of the world, the cosmos that contains our little part of creation and that contains us. So it can mean the entire realm of human existence and all that contains that reality. So we're just talking about everything. So whatever is bound in this realm is bound in the eternal realm and the larger realm of all existence. And whatever is loosed in this realm, in this physical, material, time-bound, human relational realm, is loosed in the greater realm of life. So these two terms, binding and loosing, are really crucial and critical in our understanding of this passage and of what it's going to take for us to move as a community to a place where we become a really healing and restoring part of the human community. And the first word is deo, and deo that's translated in the version I use, the New Revised Standard Version, is translated as bound, and it means to hold on to or to refuse to let go of. The other word is luo, which is translated loose. It means to let go of or to unbind, to stop clinging. So if you think of my ring, this sparrow and this orca and this beautiful little carving that sadly you can't quite see, but if you could see it, you would see the beauty of it, and you would understand, if you knew something of the symbolism, you would understand that these qualities, these characteristics that are embodied in this ring, are the qualities and characteristics of love and light, of beauty, of truth, of intelligence, and of goodness and faithfulness. And if I take this ring, and if I put it into the palm of my hand, and then close the palm of my hand on the ring, and grasp it and clutch it and hold on to it for dear life, if I in fact deo this ring, to use Jesus' word, if I bind this ring in my hand, if I hold on to it and refuse to let go of it, the problem is you can't see the sparrow, you can't see the orca. The beauty, the wonder of this creation that is symbolized in this ring is suddenly hidden from you. You're not going to be able to see it. And that's what we do in life. When we hang on, when we grasp, when we fight for our little piece of the pie, we create bound energy. We create an energy that causes tension, that causes resistance, that causes upheaval in the world around us and in human relationships. So what Jesus is challenging us to do is, rather than grasping and holding on, Jesus is challenging us to open and release that which is within us. Because the reality is, if we are beings created in the image and likeness of God, then the truth of who we are as human beings is that the sparrow and the orca actually live within us. The qualities of goodness, beauty, and truth, and light, and faithfulness that are the means whereby we are enabled, empowered to build and restore and create human community, actually dwell in our hearts. They are in fact our true nature. So what Jesus, I think, is challenging us to do in Matthew 18 is simply to unlock or release our true nature, that in Christian tradition we see embodied in the person of Jesus. We see embodied in Jesus what it actually means to be human. And the model Jesus gave us for life, for becoming fully and truly the people we were created to be, the model Jesus gave us is the model of surrender, the model of letting go, of luo, of unbinding, of stopping that clinging, clutching, and grasping. It's really at the heart of Christian faith. We have a cross, and Jesus went to the cross not enthusiastically, not determined that that was his goal. In fact, Jesus went to the cross reluctantly, but he went to the cross in the Garden of Gethsemane saying to God, not my will, but thy will be done, but your will be done in my life. That was Jesus' goal. And so Jesus unbound himself. He let go of that clutching, grasping determination that life was to go his way. And it was in doing that that his true nature began to emerge as a person. And we see in that process the possibility of our own true nature, our most human nature beginning to emerge. It's sad, sometimes people say when something goes wrong, or when a human relationship doesn't work, or when a human being does something ridiculous, they say, well, it's only human nature. Well, no, it's not only human nature. Human nature, created in the image of God, in a likeness to God, is beauty and truth and light and goodness. Everything else falls below human nature. Human nature is the gift of God given to us in our lives that are filled with love and light and goodness and truth. And we have the choice to go through life creating bound, tight energy or loosing, restoring energy. And we do it everywhere we go. Every day we make the choice, we make the decision to bind and become tight, or to release and let go. So the restoration of human community always starts in my heart. It starts with my choices. It starts with my decisions. It starts with the course and the direction that I set for my life. When I let go of my needs, wants, demands, desires, agendas, then I open for the possibility of healing, energy, and light, and truth, and goodness to be shed abroad into the world. I can't demand that someone else do it for me. I can't demand that someone else do it to me. The passage in Matthew chapter 18 is filled with this idea of me taking personal responsibility for my life, for my choices, for my decisions. I can't look to someone else to heal me. I can't look to someone else to set me free and restore me to human community. I can only take responsibility for my own grasping and letting go choice that I make every day. And the beauty of Jesus' teaching here, I think, is that it's really very simple. We are all filled with the reality of the hummingbird and the orca. Those qualities exist at the center of our being. We don't have to go find them. We don't have to look for them. You read Psalm 139, it says over and over again that God is never absent. There is no part of creation where God has been pushed to one side, excluded. That spirit of light and truth and love and purity and goodness and restoration and healing is always, always available. There's nowhere you can go to get away from it. You can close your heart to it. You can shut down inside. You can bind and grasp it. You can never undo it. You can never do away with it. It's always there as soon as we turn back, as soon as we open, as soon as our hand releases that beauty and truth that is in us and we stop the grasping. The ring of light and love that is the presence of hummingbird and orca, of beauty and truth in our being, will be seen again. So it's really a challenge to us, I think, to step up to the plate and to say, nobody else is responsible for my healing. Nobody else is responsible to restore my community. I am responsible. And as each of us takes personal responsibility for that choice to open and to soften and to reconnect with who we actually and most deeply and truly are, then that healing energy, that restoring beauty is released into the Uranus, into the universe, into the world, and it grows. We're so familiar with the idea of negative energy growing. We're so familiar with how whining and complaining creates more whining and complaining. We're so familiar with how fractious community just grows fractious community. But the opposite is also true. There's the possibility of us, of me, as I take responsibility for my own inner state, as I lay down my agendas, as I let go of my clinging and grasping. There's the possibility for me to participate in growing that healing energy of restoration, forgiveness, and light and love that is the true nature of human community and is the means whereby human communities are restored to fullness and life. And my brother, my sister is regained as I make those choices. So that's my contention, and I commend it to your practice. Thank you.
Thank you, Christopher. Excellent, and basically inspiring and informative. I'd just like to thank you very much for this, and we will have discussions that will come later. But in the
All right.
meantime, thanks again.
Great to see you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.